Amidst the haunting echoes of the desolate mountains, there I was, a seasoned Green Beret, weaving through the fabric of inexplicable and eerie incidents that seemed to sprawl across the valleys of Afghanistan like a sinister vine that never ceased to grow. Throughout my years serving, from 2012 to 2016, I've seen realities that were harsher and more inexplicable than the tales whispered among the windswept dunes. I never aspired to be a part of the elite Ranger School, nor did I see myself leafing through ancient tomes in an officer's school. An effort to secure a vehicular position turned futile, leaving me navigating the rough terrains as an infantryman. Call sign. Brethren, a name echoing my roots from Pennsylvania, I found myself embarking on an odyssey that defied the realms of known reality. My initial journey commenced around 2005, amidst the barren highlands, a place where the winds carried secrets whispered by invisible entities. As an agent assigned to scrutinize the reports delivered by drone operators, I became part of a collective, a unit that mockingly named ourselves RC Dudes. Our assignments were recurrent, patrolling areas where shadows danced with the wind, and the soil bore the scent of mysteries untold. As time looped in an eerie circle, we found ourselves being delivered to locations by helicopter, places that bore an uncanny isolation, where even the top brass insisted were unreachable by foot. It was during one such descent that Wu, one of my comrades, his voice crackling through the radio, reported a sighting that sent shivers spiraling down our spines. A solitary figure, garbed in brown, a face framed by the gray strands of time, held an axe in his hand, an enigmatic sentinel watching us with eyes that seemed to bore into our very souls. Protocol dictated our conversations over the radio, a cumbersome requirement that had us ending sentences with "over." It seemed as though this rule was a mocking testament to our futile attempts to exert control in a land that defied the very concept. When we finally landed, a palpable tension encased us. Each man turned into a mute statue, an occurrence that was profoundly unsettling, given the vibrant personalities that usually filled our ranks. The old man seemed to be a harbinger of ominous times, a sentinel of the unknown who watched us with a stoic patience that gnawed at our nerves. His presence seemingly cast a shadow on our jovial spirit, encapsulating us in a bubble of foreboding that hinted at malevolent forces weaving their threads around us. As the veil of night gracefully draped itself over the land, we found our defenses abruptly shaken by gunfire that erupted from unknown sources. A frantic dance of survival ensued as we sought refuge, our senses heightened to a surreal degree, where even the flutter of wings seemed to herald impending doom. The night turned into a canvas of fear, painted with bursts of gunfire directed at phantom enemies that vanished into the night as quickly as they appeared. A call for drone support echoed into the night, a desperate plea to unveil the creatures that lurked in the darkness. Time seemed to stretch infinitely as we waited, our breaths held hostage by the sinister symphony that played around us. Finally, as the radio crackled to life, the voice that greeted us bore news that turned our reality into a twisted nightmare. The only entities spotted amidst the desolation were animals, goats, and birds that seemed to stand as silent witnesses to the surreal tableau that unfolded before us. The mountains seemed to echo with mocking laughter. As we stood amidst the darkness, warriors turned into mere puppets in a landscape that seemed to revel in the absurdity of our plight, a stark reminder of the unpredictable and sometimes paranormal challenges that awaited us in the uncharted territories of Afghanistan. As the tendrils of dawn slowly uncoiled themselves, painting the sky with hues of awakening hope, the unsettling events of the night seemed to momentarily retreat, leaving behind an eerie silence that felt almost sacrilegious to disturb. Yet duty called us to sift through the mysteries that lay scattered across the rugged landscape, a task none of us were keen to undertake. The reluctant rays of the morning sun cast long shadows as Steve orchestrated a small reconnaissance group, comprising of Sam, Oracle, myself, and another, surnamed Argos, akin to the mythical sustenance, to explore the area while the others sought solace in the lap of slumber, attempting to regain what was lost in the chaos of the night. We trudged onward, the somnolent murmurs of the resting platoon fading into the distance, a stark contrast to the yawning void that beckoned us with an unsettling allure. The journey led us to a hillock where a lone structure stood defiantly amidst the barren lands, a beacon of mysteries untold. The sight that met our eyes as we scaled the rise seemed to emerge straight from the fevered depths of a nightmarish dream. The elderly sentinel from our earlier encounter stood in the doorway, his visage marred by the same exhaustion that seemed to haunt our every step. Flanked by two others of his kind, an ominous presence hung about them, marked significantly by the cruel artistry of dried blood that seemed to adorn the surroundings in a grotesque 30-yard radius. The palpable tension in the air intensified as Oracle engaged in a chilling dialogue with the old man, who bore tales of an entity far more terrifying than mere extremists. Their words wove tales of an ancient menace, a creature that stalked the lands with an insatiable hunger that seemed to transcend the known boundaries of fear and imagination. The night harbored this being, a shadow that bore the semblance of a man, yet held an air of malevolence that struck terror into the bravest of hearts. Confusion and dread intermingled as we tried to make sense of the fragmented narratives that seemed to blur the lines between reality and the unholy. Amidst the eerie confessions, Sam felt a stirring of suspicion, a nagging feeling that the enigmatic old men might be concealing secrets darker than what met the eye. The radio came to life as Sam relayed the unsettling findings to the platoon, beckoning them to converge upon the mysterious dwelling. Within what felt like a fleeting moment and an eternity at once, the entire platoon congregated, forming a ring of uneasy vigilance around the dwelling. Oracle and I embarked on a mission to unveil the secrets that lay within the stone walls. As we ventured deeper, we stumbled upon an astonishing sight, a sea of spent casings that seemed to bear testament to an epic battle waged against unseen forces. The very floor seemed to have forged an unholy alliance with the brass remnants of 7.62 by 39 rounds, an eerie testament to the relentless onslaught they had endured. Their source of ammunition remained an enigma, but their fear, raw and visceral, echoed through the seemingly empty halls, hinting at terrors unimaginable that lurked in the dark corners of the land. An uneasy camaraderie seemed to form between us and the old men, as if the presence of our platoon served as a barrier against the dark forces that threatened to engulf us all. A silent consensus seemed to hover amongst us, a realization that perhaps we were all victims of a malevolent game orchestrated by forces beyond our comprehension. As we retreated to regroup and reassess the bizarre developments, Oracle shared with me a fragment of a conversation he had with one of the elderly inhabitants, a chilling revelation that threatened to undermine the very foundations of our understanding. Tales of an entity that roamed the lands even before the Russians made their mark, a being that seemed to scoff at the destructive powers of an RPG, hinting at a resilience that bordered on the supernatural. With hearts burdened by an enigmatic dread, we returned to our lookout points, the silhouette of the small house receding into the distance, leaving behind an unsettling wake of questions and fear. We remained vigilant, the shadows of the next 2 nights stretching infinitely before us, as we stood as guardians against an ancient evil that threatened to engulf us in its malevolent embrace. In the moon's eerie embrace on the ensuing second night, the night itself seemed to resonate with distant echoes of gunfire. However, we held fast, refusing to succumb to the terror that these sounds invoked, fortifying ourselves with a collective resolve that was palpably tense yet defiant. As the third night unfurled its dark wings, a chilling silence reigned supreme, a silence that foretold tales of dread and unknown horrors. A silence that spoke louder than any gunfire ever could, filling our hearts with a dread that seemed to seep into our very bones, leaving us grappling with possibilities too terrifying to voice. As the custodians of this haunted land, Oracle and I found ourselves entrusted with the harrowing task of investigating the well-being of the elderly inhabitants, who had become reluctant figures in our unfolding narrative of horror. Like actors playing their roles in a macabre play, we braced ourselves for the grim revelations that awaited us. The moon seemed to betray us, basking the land in a sepia tone that rendered everything even more surreal, painting a grotesque portrait of the tragedy that lay before us. Our advance revealed the first of the horrific tableaus, the elderly sentinel, who had once stood as a beacon of mystery and fear, now reduced to a grotesque fixture in the scenery, his life extinguished in a brutal display of violence that left a chilling trail of blood marking his final moments. A few paces away, a second figure lay in a state of horrific desecration, his very being violated and torn asunder, scattering remains in a circular radius that bore testimony to the relentless savagery unleashed upon him. The dreadful discovery of Mr. Paranoid unfolded in chapters of escalating horror, as our Bakup arrived to bear witness to a scene that seemed to transcend the boundaries of earthly violence and cruelty. Nestled amongst the dead goats, his body bore the grotesque signs of an encounter with an entity that seemed to revel in the macabre. A twisted display of his upper torso and a detached arm were clear indicators of a monstrous force at play, an entity that toyed with its victims in a perverse dance of death. The sheer brutality exhibited on the lifeless forms suggested a malevolent force reveling in the terror it bestowed upon its victims, leaving them caught in the throes of shock and disbelief in their final moments. As we congregated to deliberate on the horror that unfolded before us, a silent agreement forged amongst us, a pact to withhold the truths too horrifying to utter. For to speak of them would be to invite the scrutiny and continued presence in this forsaken land, a prospect too daunting to consider. Thus, as we boarded the helicopters, leaving behind the landscape that held secrets too dark to fathom, we presented a united front of silence, refusing to acknowledge the unspeakable horrors that had transpired. As the narrative transitions, we find ourselves embarking on another chapter in this saga, a reflection of time spent in the rugged highlands in an unyielding pursuit of the elusive enemy, Mr. Taliban Kaya. Our deployment to the relatively secluded Forward Operating Base Cobra in the Southern Regional Command Section of Afghanistan in late 2015 hinted at a respite, a year of relative tranquility before our departure from this land that held mysteries and terrors in equal measure. But tranquility was a fleeting illusion, as a series of inexplicable events began to unfold, challenging our grip on reality. The perplexing disappearance of ammunition from our stores marked the beginning of an enigma that seemed to defy explanation. From rifle ammunition to mortar shells, the losses grew in scale, prompting a relentless quest to uncover the perpetrator amongst us, suspected of trading our security for monetary gains in the local black market. Yet, as weeks turned into a month, the investigations reached a dead end, leaving behind questions and a mounting sense of unease. A breakthrough occurred in the most unexpected of places, revealing a stash of the missing ammunition concealed within the confines of a food storage area, a place heavily fortified and seldom accessed without noticeable effort. The discovery led to an impromptu celebration of sorts, as we sought to reclaim a semblance of normalcy through a display of firepower aimed at a distant, inanimate adversary, the rock that stood as a witness to our ordeal. Yet, as the year 2016 drew to a close, the land seemed unwilling to release its grip on us, ensnaring us in a web of eerie occurrences and chilling sightings that tugged at the edges of our sanity. Whispered rumors of nocturnal voices and phantom figures walking the deserts fueled the growing sense of dread that permeated the base. Even the stoic Sam, a figure from earlier narrations, found himself ensnared in the growing web of mysteries as he recounted auditory hallucinations of ethereal prayers echoing in the night, a phenomenon that defied logical explanations, leaving us grappling with fears too terrifying to voice, yet too real to dismiss. In the midst of this unsettling narrative, there occurred an episode that shook our perceptions to the core, adding another layer of enigma to an already perplexing series of events. On a night that bore the weight of our mounting apprehensions, I found myself gripped by an alarm that resonated deeply within. An urgent cry escaped my lips, echoing the perceived threats that seemed to loom in the shadows, ready to engulf us in a maelstrom of violence and chaos. Within moments, we found ourselves assuming defensive positions, a united front against the unseen adversaries that haunted our nights. A shadowy pact of vigilance was forged amongst us, an agreement to divide our forces into two equal halves, ensuring a continuous guard against the lurking threats, be it the Taliban or ISIS, that might venture to encroach upon our precarious sanctum under the cover of darkness. On a subsequent night, my gaze was drawn westward, ensnared by a spectacle that unfolded in the distance, captivating my attention with its relentless approach. As I scrutinized the approaching entity, my instincts urged me to alert my comrades, drawing their attention to the anomaly that seemed to defy time and space. Our collective gaze was met with a vision that transcended the realms of the known, a relic from a bygone era manifested before us. A Russian gas truck, a counterpart to the iconic Deuce and a Half, trundled towards our position, carrying with it figures clad in vintage military attire, their distinct gear and five-pointed helmets painting a portrait of warriors lost in time. The sheer realism of the spectacle compelled us to illuminate this phantom convoy with a spotlight, a beacon that sought to unveil the truth that lay beneath the facade. As the luminous beam traced their path, tension escalated within our ranks, giving rise to a frantic alert that roused the entire phobie, preparing them for a confrontation that seemed inevitable. Yet, as the minutes ticked away, a surreal occurrence transpired, plunging us into a vortex of uncertainty and fear. An inexplicable power outage engulfed our surroundings, a darkness that seemed to emanate from the very bowels of the earth, consuming light and sound in its voracious grasp. The disquieting silence that followed bore testimony to an anomaly that defied logic, leaving us in a state of heightened alert, bracing for an onslaught that never materialized. As our frantic gazes sought out the vanished convoy, it became evident that we were caught in the grip of an enigma that sought to challenge the boundaries of our reality. The ensuing minutes stretched into an eternity, a void where time seemed to lose its meaning, leaving us grappling with the surreal aftermath of a phenomenon that had no place in the physical world. As we exchanged uneasy glances, a collective realization dawned upon us. This experience transcended the realms of known psychiatric conditions, venturing into territories uncharted and inexplicable. A silent consensus emerged amongst us, a pact to shield the outside world from the secrets that lay buried in this forsaken land, lest we find ourselves subjected to the scrutinizing gaze of counselors, seeking to unravel the intricate web of mysteries that had ensnared our minds. And so, as our time in this barren land drew to a close, we found ourselves standing at the threshold of a journey back to the known world, carrying with us the weight of secrets too complex to unravel. The eerie occurrences that peppered our tenure here seemed reluctant to release their grip, leaving us with lingering questions that gnawed at our very core. As we boarded the aircraft that promised to carry us away from this land of shadows and whispers, a part of us remained tethered to the mysteries that lay entrenched in the rugged highlands and within the confines of our embattled fob. The uncertainty that plagued our minds found no resolution as we soared above the sprawling expanse that had borne witness to our trials and tribulations. An unyielding sense of wonder persisted, leaving us haunted by the unsolved mysteries that lurked within these desolate realms. As we traversed the skies, bound for the welcoming embrace of our homeland, the inescapable reality settled upon us. The truths that lay hidden within this landscape were unlikely to ever reveal themselves, leaving us as reluctant custodians of secrets too vast and unfathomable to comprehend. An unspoken bond united us, as we ventured forth into an uncertain future, forever marked by the enigmatic experiences that defied explanation, leaving an indelible mark upon our souls, a testament to the eerie encounters and unexplained phenomena that had become an inseparable part of our narrative.